Want to bring in Ottawa epidemiologist Dr. Raywat Deonandan now. A lot of information has been output to the public as we inch closer to the fall, but I want to start with those scenes in Kingston. University students returning to or just beginning school. How critical is it that rules are followed on these campuses?
Oh, it's really important, especially now as we set the tone for behavior at the beginning of this season. Now, I'm tempted to give them a freebie the first couple of days back. People are excited, you want to be social, and as long as you're outside, it's a little less problematic, but this can't be the norm. So I hope people are getting the message. Most university campuses across the province are going entirely online, minimize this kind of threat. And this disease just loves mass gatherings. We can't risk it too often, so I hope it's a one-time thing.
Right, and let's talk about the uptick that we're seeing in young people right across the country. How concerned do we need to be about that?
Pretty concerning. Now, the threat is that young people will give it to older people because older people to have a bad experience and more likely to die. And we're starting to see that in BC. We're seeing an uptick in people over 40, and probably we'll see that soon in Ontario and Quebec as well. So young people aren't getting the message, or at least some aren't getting the message. I don't want to paint that wall too broadly with a broad brush, and because some people are actually being quite responsible. But young people have a dual problem. One is they're less likely to take risks seriously, and the second is they're more likely to need to socialize development. And that's a bad combination for this disease. So I hope that they really absorb the message well and realize in order to keep the economy and the world open, you got to stay in smaller groups.
That's right. Let's go a little bit younger now, back to elementary and secondary education. The consensus among most experts is small class sizes should be a priority. How would you grade Ottawa school boards on that front?
I'm really sympathetic to school boards. They are stuck with having to implement a plan with minimal resources given forth by the province. Ottawa's doing the best that they can. I like the fact that they've decided to privilege certain neighborhoods with smaller classes, and those neighborhoods are the ones with higher caseloads. And that's kind of important, and it's a good strategic move if you haven't got enough money to make smaller classes across the board. So the most important thing we have to do is to keep the cases out of the community, because if it's not in the community, it can't get into the classroom. The second most important thing is once it's in the community, keep it out of the classroom. And you do that with smaller class sizes and also symptom checking, because if you're symptomatic, you're more likely to be able to spread it. And of course, we know this is an asymptomatic pandemic, but those who are asymptomatic are probably a little less likely to transmit it. There are a lot of plans in place, a lot of tools being deployed. The school boards are doing the best that they can. That's not a lot of security and confidence for parents, but rest assured that you will probably be fine. Most kids are going to be absolutely fine. The problem is that schools tend to be pandemic accelerators handled without sufficient care. But so far, Ottawa is doing a pretty good job, the Ottawa School Board.
All right, let's talk about the long weekend. It's our first day of the long weekend, which means people are obviously anxious to get outside and visit with friends and family. What do we need to do to stay on the right track?
Wow, that is the big question, because this is probably the last big opportunity for socialization before going back to school. People need to avoid large indoor gatherings, avoid the bars if you can, avoid the house parties. If you're going to have a social event, make it outside and keep your distance, and wear a mask if you can't keep your distance. I know this sounds like old hat now, and I sound like the old school mom scolding people, but this is what you have to do. This is how this disease gets a foothold and explodes again in our communities. So set the tone now. Small gatherings, outdoors if you can, and distance if you can. If you can't, definitely wear a mask.
All right, that's good advice. Dr. Raywat Deonandan with the University of Ottawa. Always great to have your insights, and appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.